basketball because it's a 7:00 tip off tonight. On Wednesday, it was a 7:30 tip off.
Oh, right. Okay, cool.
All righty. Well, Stokastic, I believe we are live here. New Friday combo for you. It is your old pal EMAC. I am joined by Danny Burke here as I hear myself talking because I have too many tabs open. Somehow I had YouTube open. How am I talking? Who's that handsome voice? Because I love the sound of my own voice. It's handsome. So, hello, we're here. Danny, get a word in edgewise, my friend. What's going on? It's been a hot minute since we did our lone NBA show.
Yeah, doing well, Emax. Since that span of time, obviously, we've had the beginning of this baseball season, some exciting golf tournaments, man, tons of action going on. And yeah, happy to be here on the program with you. Had a blast the last time we did it. And this is my first MLB show, so certainly pumped to be doing that alongside you, and especially with a good slate to look forward to. So yeah, should be a good time, my friend.
Yeah, we do have one weather situation. There is no game in Coors Field tonight because there is snow there. So sorry, Coors Field. That's sad because I had in my article written up a whole thing about how I saw two people mention that taking Mackenzie Gore tonight was going to be sneaky. And I'm like, you can't just automatically pick a DFS platitude and go, oh, the Coors Field pitcher is going to be sneaky. It actually wasn't because FanDuel and Yahoo goosed the salary of Mackenzie Gore. DraftKings didn't, and he was the best fantasy point per dollar pitcher, and he was coming in top 3 popularity across the sites. That's not sneaky. But now it's sneaky if you play him because there's no game. So the joke is on me.
Yeah, that was insane kind of seeing how much popularity that Mackenzie Gore has got. I mean, just not necessarily what you're accustomed to seeing with him in years past, but obviously he's earned his worth up to this point, and people kind of thinking it's sneaky with the whole Coors Field ideology of it. But now he's becoming a popular play, and yeah, seldom are you seeing games getting canceled now due to snow. But I'm kind of laughing here because I'm in Chicago, so I'm posted up in the Windy City, and I have friends and my sisters in Colorado, and they're bragging about how much better the weather there is all the time, and it usually is. But the volatility of the random snow days like they're getting now, that'll drive you crazy. So certainly don't feel too bad for them right now.
You need to get Chat GPT on a little picture of making a Easter Bunny in a Santa outfit and send it to them.
Exactly.
So.
That's good. Oh yeah, no doubt.
Good times. Well, I see Dirty O had a nice little night last night. He says Lindquist got him on Griffin Canning for the GPP yesterday. So hey, that's always special to get that. He ended up taking down the $4 with a single bullet. So that's actually really, really good. I'm going to look at FanGraphs. FanGraphs is up for me. If you guys, I see someone in chat asking, Andre B there. I do have the subscription. I donate the $50 a year, whatever it is, to them because I don't like the ads because it just overworks the fan on my computer. So I don't know if that is an issue. Let me see if I can make sure I can get to stats other than their homepage. Yeah, I can get to my canned reports here. So looks like that could be a you issue there, Andre, but who knows from that standpoint. So we are going, and the funny thing is I didn't even realize that snow was going to be an issue for Coors Field today. So I mean, it's Easter, right? Shouldn't we not have snow anymore? Even in the Midwest, the Chicagos, the Colorados, right? Is this even legal? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it just teases us, right? We get one day where it's like 60, another where it's 70, and then 2 days later, yeah, you're walking outside and you need your winter jacket. So yeah, it's the Midwest for you.
Indeed. All right. So looking everywhere else, wind out at a lot of places, no precipitation risks, maybe a little bit in Chicago, the Cubs, but I believe that was an afternoon game. Let's see. That game's underway right now, so you don't have to worry about that. About 90 minutes ago, I was driving by Tropicana Field. please note they're not playing there this year because the hurricane took the roof off of it. But I was laughing, and I happened to look at the temperature, 88 degrees right now in the Tampa area. So George Steinbrenner Field will be something to talk about. But we're going to focus here on the pitchers. So I've got the top pitchers tool up displayed here on the YouTube channel. Over on Playback, if you're watching there, I've got the OddsShopper Portfolio EV set up for baseball ticking along there. But we've got Freddie Peralta, I will say, is collecting some of the popularity on DraftKings that had been earmarked for Mackenzie Gore. Let's see what's happening on FanDuel. He is collecting some on FanDuel now as well. So he was in the low 20s on FanDuel, 25%. Now he's at 33%. So that's going to change things up a little bit here. I'm slightly concerned with Fastball Freddie because he's going against the Oakland Athletics, who are hitting a lot of home runs. They're top 10 in home runs right now, Danny. They have the league leader in Tyler Soderstrom, but they're only middle of the pack for runs scored. They're only middle of the pack for total bases. So what that indicates to us is solo shots, and pitchers can survive solo shots, even 2 or 3 of them in a game. How do you feel about Fastball Freddie Peralta?
So I'm kind of the same way with the EMAC, and certainly as we see, his ownership is through the roof, and rightfully so. Again, someone who's earned that right to have it be that high, and at 9,500, maybe not too egregious compared to some of the other spend ups. And the last outing we saw from Freddie at home, he went 8 innings pitched and was damn near flawless against the Kansas City Royals. And people still in the back of their mind, I think, have this attribution toward the A's as being this low lead bunch. And you kind of hit it perfectly, though, right? I mean, they can hit the long ball and they can have days where they just explode, but then yet it isn't necessarily reflected in the record or on a consistent basis. And that's what you're going to get from them. And that's what makes them an appealing team from a random game to game standpoint when you're looking to bet them. But in this situation, I still am a little concerned because of that high ownership, because not only have they had success against right-handed pitching, EMAC, but they've really limited the strikeout damage too, about 17.4% on their K rate, which is shockingly lower than I thought it would be for this Oakland A's bunch that I was kind of just, pegging to be a boomer bust type of lineup. But now they've been pretty consistent at the plate, and perhaps you get a little boost when you're playing a series against the White Sox, but everybody's going to get their go around at the Southsiders. But still, yeah, I mean, look, the highest exposure I have from just a recent run is on Freddie Peralta. And it's not that I'm not going to, I'm not going to knock him down per se, but I am just a little timid overall about just the admiration that our Sims and everybody has for him in this spot. It certainly wouldn't shock me to see him maybe not go as far, and the A's to cause a little bit of a disruption for him today.
Yep. And part of the reason to kind of round out and now throw something positive towards Peralta here, it's the back half of that A's lineup that just doesn't really get it done. All the power is concentrated in the first 5 guys. Lawrence Butler, Brett Rooker, Tyler Soderstrom is the league leader with 9 home runs. Shea Langoliers has really come along. He's their sort of power hitting catcher and DH more often than not, sitting in the cleanup spot. And then JJ Bleday sort of bounces around with Rooker between different lineup spots here. But the back of the lineup, they don't strike out, but they don't walk. They don't get contact, but they also don't have power. Basically, they put the ball in play and then they get out.
Right.
Which could lead to 3 up, 3 down innings, which is good for Peralta because conserves some of his pitches for those tougher batters at the top. So this is baseball. We can spin things multiple ways. They're good. These pitchers are going to make between 30 and 32 starts. 10 of them, even the best ones, just aren't going to have their stuff. The Cy Young guys, they'll have their stuff for all but about 6 or 7 games. Right. 10 games, they're just going to be locked in. Even the worst pitchers have solid starts throughout the year. It's that middle 10. And that's where we live and die with things here. And with Peralta, we get into even more of a coin flip situation. This could be a both sides. I don't mind home run hunting here, but I think stacking, unless you're going with a direct leverage stack, which I think is okay. But just understand, as we mentioned, middle of the pack for runs, middle of the pack for total bases. It's home runs where they're excelling. That makes more for a secondary stack or some one-offs from the Athletics. But that these are the things we have to talk about now that we don't have Coors Field drawing in all of the attention. The guy I liked a lot today is Logan Webb. And he's someone I wrote up in the free Spotlight Pitchers and Top Stacks article, because it's fascinating when you look at him because of his ground ball ability. So he has, he gets to the notes here. Why can't I find that? In his last 4+ seasons, so the 4 prior to this, so we're skipping the pandemic, but going with the rest of them, he has a 58.8% ground ball rate, just a 0.6, so half a home run per 9 innings. That's almost unheard of here. Even like Framber Valdez gives up more than 0.6 home runs per 9. That travels with him, right? Plus, he gets to take on the Angels, who, while they are much better, still have some challenges in that lineup. You've got Zach Neto's hurt. Yohan Moncada is hurt. Anthony Rendon, do we even count him as being an Angel at this point? He is in the 5 seasons he's been with them. I think he's played like 213 games or something like that. It's horrible. And I say that as a Nationals fan who enjoyed him as their rebuilding years and then into the World Series. But he never plays. Mike Trout's now 33. Trout, 179 batting average, but I believe he has 6 home runs. Would you have ever thought Mike Trout would have a 179 batting average? Batting average has just changed a lot these days. So I'm liking, and we're not alone, but I'm liking Logan Webb here. How do you feel about Webb? Who is your next best pitcher that you like in the tools here?
Emac, it's funny because over the past few seasons, I've been a avid supporter of Logan Webb, probably to a fault, to where his numbers outright and then just his underlying metrics are seemingly heading in the right direction, but it's either he doesn't get enough offensive support or he just digs himself into these holes. And, he's just always dealing with sometimes his own adversity or that from his lineup that's not producing enough wins. He's always been kind of a guy that I flirted with for Cy Young, just taking a flyer before the season begins. And look, he's been off to a good campaign throughout his first 4 starts up to this point. The issue is the longevity. How deep are you going to get him in this game? And if the Angels play to where their stats always show them to be, then yeah, you could probably, scribble in Webb for 6 to 7 innings. He's already gone 7 innings twice, and one of those against Houston on the road. So look, if you can get him in that 6 to 7 innings range mark and you feel comfortable enough with that, then I have no issue taking Logan Webb here because, again, he's kept his barrel rate down. Swinging strike numbers are above 10%, which is in the direction you want to be. And I think with this 4-game sample size, you feel comfortable enough to cite these stats and be able to have conviction with them. And because we've seen him do this time and time again, it's just in the years past, he's kind of had these hiccups at the beginning of the year. Is that going to happen tonight against the Angels? Probably not. So I certainly see where you're heading in the direction with Logan Webb. Another guy that I would probably throw out there that, at the beginning of the day, I was higher on him. And now it looks like the recent sim run that I just did, it seems like the simulations are backing it up as well. I'm pretty high on Bryce Elder tonight against the Minnesota Twins. I do like the Braves in this game. I think it's going to be a good bounce back spot for them. And I think it's going to be a good bounce back spot for Bryce Elder because his numbers have been pretty underwhelming to begin his campaign with a 7.20 ERA. His expected ERA is 5.36, which, yes, it's good. It's lower, but it's still at a pretty brutal spot. But then you look at his xFIP at 3.49. That's where you really want to circle in for what we should project from him when it's this early in the season. He's got a high ground ball rate, almost 60%. Batting average of balls in play is sub 300. And his skill interactive ERA is indicating that his ERA should be around that 350 range. And, Minnesota is a very volatile bunch themselves on the offensive front. So now with Atlanta kind of, I don't want to say desperate, but they're certainly playing with more incentive from the slow start. Going back home, Elder needs to prove himself. So does this lineup. I just think overall it's going to be a very productive day for Atlanta, and it starts with Elder, who needs to get a signature start to get this season going after a couple rough ones. And I think going against this Minnesota team that can absolutely be lackluster on that side of the ball, that it could come to fruition in that he's worth the price of admission here at just 6,500. And again, I'm getting about 20% of him across my lineups. Looks like there's some pretty good leverage on him too. So that's probably the pitcher I'm the highest on heading into tonight.
All right. And we can't mention Atlanta without saying Trae Young, because tonight we have elimination on the line. So you're going to get at 6 o'clock the NBA DFS Live Before Lock. Josh Engelman is going to take you down the home stretch there. And then you're going to get Josh and Ben Raza doing a little playback show afterwards, talking about some sports wagering. Ben and Josh will go off the rails on just about anything. You could probably coax Ben into giving you some weekend golf bets as well, since he is an expert in that. Find out what he likes for tomorrow's soccer action. Check that out. That's going to be on playback after the NBA Live Before Lock. And then I do want to mention that we have Portfolio EV available for anybody that has not yet tried it. You get a 7-day free trial. Down in the YouTube description here is the link that will take you to do that. And we'll talk about Portfolio EV a little bit later, because that is one of the things that Danny uses on a daily basis here. So last question I have for you, Danny, and then we'll talk to our mid-tier pitchers. This is I'm asking for comment, God. I'm playing a little detective work here. Are you wearing Nikes, perhaps Air Force Ones?
For me personally, or in the comments?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right
well,
now,
so I got my Nike shirt on right now.
Okay.
I have no shoes on currently, and nor do I have a pair of Air Force Ones. I mean, I have like generic like Nike gym shoes. Also, that may cause a ruckus. I know people call them tennies, sneakers.
Tennis shoes on the West Coast, sneakers on the East Coast.
Yeah, we got gym shoes here in the Midwest. So, that's the extent of my Nike product.
Okay. Well, your Nelly gear, I see you have the Band-Aid. They're asking about, is this a Nelly impersonation going on here? So I thought I'd check and see. I see the shirt, the shoes. Where are we going with this?
Well, it's funny, I was on a show yesterday and the host said the same thing. I was cracking up. That's hilarious that so many people are saying. I didn't even think about that originally. But to clear it up, so what happened, and I keep prefacing it by saying I wish it was a cooler story. I really do. If I would have gotten punched in the face, it would have been better. But TLDR, I got hit with a golf ball, and it wasn't even via a club. Let's just say I was hanging out at my buddy's who lives on a golf course. He was asking us to be groomsmen. We were watching the UFC fight. A few drinks may or may not have been consumed, and we said, hey, here's a good idea. You live on the golf course. It's nighttime. Let's use the glow-in-the-dark golf balls. Well, in order to get the glow-in-the-dark golf balls to light up, you have to throw them against something. So no, they didn't initially, suggest to use my face. However, one of his, not the most intelligent friends, decided to use his house to throw it against, because he's got like a brick stone layer at the bottom. So he chucks one. I'm going to walk past to go pick it up, and he's throwing it as hard as he can. Throws another one, ricochets right into my face. I had to get some stitches, and I had a nice little black and blue bruise there, but no, we're hanging in there, man. So again, I wish it was a cooler story. It was more just the inconvenience at like 2 a.m. was the worst part about it. So no Nelly impersonation, unfortunately.
Yeah. I got it now. Ricky is saying West Coast, we don't say tennis shoes. When I grew up in Washington State, we did. Of course, I'm almost in that box of where you're claiming the olds. The olds call them tennis shoes. Tenny runners. Or tennis shoes. And my mom called them tenny runners, and she was from California. But obviously, Mama Emac has been on the show a few times here. She's in her 80s, so she's well into that other box. So perhaps things have changed. Or she would just call them K-Swiss, because she played tennis, and she only wore K-Swiss. So there you go. All right. Back to baseball. We've hit everything here. David Peterson, rather interesting, going against St. Louis. Peterson has had a couple decent starts here. St. Louis has been kind of a whole lot of Even if Paul Goldschmidt had not ended up with the Yankees, he still would have been in his age 36 season. You've got Nolan Arenado, who's 34. You've got a couple key injuries there with Mason Wynn, and I'm one of their catchers, which moves things around a little bit. And they've got some of their lesser players getting more at bats. Peterson is always somebody who's interesting to stream in season-long leagues, but he is coming into play here on DFS. He usually has a decent chance at getting a quality start. And if he doesn't get the quality start, oftentimes it's because he gets 5 or 6 strikeouts, using up more of his pitches, only getting it through the 5th inning there. So he is someone that I like. And then the other guy, I was surprised you mentioned Bryce Elder. The other guy I like a little bit is Brian Wu. Now, the biggest issue with Wu is he kind of has about a 85 to 90 soft pitch limit because he has been hurt so many different times in just his short tenure with the Mariners. They're trying to make sure he can maintain a full season. So this is something they've actively done. And if you go look back, he rarely goes, over 90. I think he has only 4 or 5 times in his last 30 starts, but he gets deep into games because he's efficient and he utilizes his strikeouts well. And that is a surprising combination. It leads to an elevated salary. And if he's not getting his strikeouts, then he's not being efficient. He's not going to pay off that salary. So the floor can drop out on him all of a sudden. He is going against a struggling Toronto team. He's the last guy I like, but you need to go, if you go look at some of his pitch counts, and you're like, Emac, you're an idiot. He goes through 6 innings all the time. It's like, yeah, on 80 to 88 pitches.
Right.
So that's the last one that I have positive things to say about. Anything else you want to hit on pitching? And then we'll catch anything else as we go game by game through the slate here, covering all of that.
Yeah, so just to kind of add to what you were saying about those guys, I'm with you on Brian Wu. I did take a piece of the Blue Jays earlier in the day, but that was more of a situational bet from what Seattle's coming off of yesterday with that crazy game, and Toronto's kind of surging, relatively speaking, at the right time. And I'm a big Brian Wu guy. I think he's one of the more underappreciated pitchers from a general perspective. But I just don't think his offense is necessarily going to back him up tremendously today. Again, that's the betting side of things. But yes, I would have no issues getting a good exposure number on Brian Wu at about that 9,200 price, a little bit more expensive than you'd like, but thinking that he could be in for a good start and get that quality start mark. And then hopefully the Blue Jays can just beat up that bullpen. With David Peterson, man, you might have to help me out here a little bit. I'm just not that high on Peterson heading into this spot, because looking at some of these numbers, I mean, in 3 starts, he's walking over 4 guys per 9 innings. And again, it is very early. Don't get me wrong. But, his swinging strike rate's at 7%, and he is liable to walking these batters. And St. Louis, up to this point, no, I don't think it's going to keep up, but they've actually been hitting pretty well against southpaws right now. They are striking out, probably an above average amount, but then the wind is also blowing out here at about 18 miles per hour. So I'm a little concerned with how much love the Sims is showing for Peterson. If that's just from a pure salary standpoint, leverage, I suppose I get it. But again, I'm just a little hesitant because of everything kind of playing into this specific environment, Emac.
No, I would agree with that. I think the temperature in by the time he's done pitching, it's going to be in the mid 50s. And I think that kind of mitigates some of the wind in Citi Field. It'd be a completely different answer if it was 80 plus degrees in New York or 80 with 85% humidity in St. Louis and we had a wind going out. But I'm still okay with it. He does such a decent job of getting ground balls, keeping it for the last couple seasons above 50%, gets just enough strikeouts, limits power. So his bad innings end up being with, a 2-run double or something of that nature. So I think I give him a fair amount of credit, and I don't like to stack against him. And that's leading me to sort of say, oh, well, I kind of like him on a slate here where there's not an outstanding answer, but, sort of like when we were talking about Freddie Peralta, there are nits that you can pick at for anybody in the league. And we're going to talk about even someone as awesome as Jacob deGrom once was here shortly. But again, that's baseball. That's why we try to harness the chaos. We try to embrace the volatility here. And that's one thing that we do is by building, 50, 100, 150 lineups, utilizing the Sims and our tools. That's one way we can get there. That's also taking cash games off the table. So I'm showing a portfolio EV here on the screen. I also dropped into the chat. This is also in the description below us in the YouTube video. If you sign up through any of those sites that are on the landing page of the link I just dropped in there, you can get a month of portfolio EV if you follow the instructions. Essentially, you are making a deposit, making a wager, or a pick 'em bet. Most of them are pick 'em operators or sports wagering operators. And then you send us your welcome email, screenshot of your first settled bet or pick 'em card to support@stokastic.com. Tell us which single sport sims you'd like, and we'll work to get you 30 days of that. So pretty good deal there. But portfolio EV, I've got popping up here. Wouldn't you know, Brian Wu is at the top as our best bet, a 7 OddsShopper rating right now. So what that does is that grades out the different bets. It includes the probabilities of them happening, the ROI, and the historical ROI. Under 5.5 hits. I think that's reasonable to take the under. It's minus 125. So you can see that the line is shading. He should get less than 6 more often than not. Baseball being baseball, anything can happen, but that's a good way you can sort that. And the other nice thing is I just happen to have this set up on for MLB, but I also, since I'm in Florida, I only get the Hard Rock. So I have, different portfolios. Oh joy, there's only 2 wagers meeting my criteria on Hard Rock right now, and they're both NHL. But I also have some of the social sports wagering sites, including NoVig. So you can say, hey, wait a second, look at all these wagers I could be looking at right now. So that's the power of portfolio EV. Because if I had to scroll through my phone all the time to find all these things, I'd never find it. And I look at this. I've got glasses now. They're what's called progressive. So they used to be called bifocals. So I have to move my head and look at what I'm looking at. So it gets me all dizzy. So I haven't quite gotten into these, but I started using them this week. So in any event, I like portfolio EV on the computer. It works just fine as the app on the phone. Plus, you automatically can link it with most of the sports books we support to enter the bets for you, which is very, very slick. So that was portfolio EV. We're now going to go game by game here. Back to baseball. Maybe one more read unless we get well over 100 likes. But thank you, folks. We got to keep the lights on here, everyone. So let me kick Danny off here on our next game. New York and Tampa in George Steinbrenner Field. George Steinbrenner Field, the dimensions kind of mimic Yankee Stadium and old Yankee Stadium. So they've got that deeper center field, but they also have the shorter porch that benefits left-handed hitters. It is going to be the wind blowing in a little bit today, about 8 to 12 miles an hour. It's just kind of nominal. It's not really sustained, but game time temperatures are going to be in the 80s. Humidity isn't quite there, but this has been showing that this is playing more of a hitter's park. Not quite a hitter's paradise. That's going to happen in a couple weeks here, probably 2 homestands from now when it gets really hot and humid in Florida. But for the time being, it makes it tricky to trust even good pitchers like Carlos Rodon and who is it? I think it's Rasmussen, who's on the other side. What do you like from this game?
Originally I was circling Rodon as maybe relatively buy low spot at about 8,200 on DraftKings, right? I mean, like you said, it's turning into that hitter's ballpark, certainly, but Rodon still has a lot of good stuff, and we just haven't seen that from him up to this point. And more importantly, Tampa Bay, 25% K rate against lefties so far. And they've been an offense that's been exceeding expectations, at least in my book. So it's been impressive to see. I think they'd fall back down to reality sooner rather than later. And I think it could come against Rodon. So if you're getting more of the lower ownership on Rodon, and last I checked, it was about 14%, so nothing too great. But I thought he was worth the stab in a few lineups here if you're limited even, because, his xERA is 3.23 despite his 5.48 normal ERA, and his xFIP's 3.50, whereas FIP's at 4.95. So again, he should be performing better than what we've seen up to this point. And you coincide that with Tampa Bay, who I believe has been exceeding expectations a little bit too much. I think it could be a pretty productive night from Rodon. It's not to say that I think he's better than the options we have available, but I wouldn't shy away from him per se. Again, his BABIP's good at 188. Ground ball percentage is very high, sub 40% on his hard hit rate. So he's just kind of got to get one quality outing to get him back in the mix, EMAC. And I think it could happen tonight against Tampa Bay. And on the other side, Rasmussen, I mean, look, he's been a very efficient pitcher. I mean, that's not necessarily a guy that I want to step in the way of right now when he's in his groove, despite what the Yankees are capable of throughout their lineup. So to be honest, I'm not too crazy with this game in terms of exposure overall. I mean, maybe a couple Yankees players here and there and some stacks. That's probably about it more than anything, EMAC. But again, not my favorite game to pick from per se.
Yep, I would agree with that as well. And this is one I wanted to just spend a minute on because now we got two good pitchers. Weather is good, but the wind's kind of blowing in, makes it not quite as enthralling as this game environment has been for the last two homestands. So it's important to note that. So I'm okay with either pitcher as an SP2. Feel a little bit better about Rodon because he can make his own magic with strikeouts. On the other side, Judge, Jazz Chisholm, etc. Who's going to say no to a torpedo bat home run? But it seems like it could be tougher to see a sustained outburst of offense from this game. We don't have that many, so you don't want to fully cross this one off. And of course, the Yankees lead the league in home runs, are top 3 in runs and top 3 in total bases. But it's not quite the, I hate saying it, but I'm going to smash spot that it often is when we've got the Yankees. Let's go to our next game here. We have Cincinnati in Baltimore. The batters of Birdland have been struggling. They are going against Andrew Abbott. Do you know how many home runs against lefties the Baltimore Orioles have this season?
I do not, but I assume it's probably less than like 2 because they've been atrocious against lefties. That's all I know. So I'm
it
guessing
is less than 2, but it's more than you and I have combined. It is
right.
1.
That adds up. I mean, yeah, geez. I mean, Baltimore, man, another team that we're waiting to figure out, huh?
Indeed. So I'm liking Baltimore. They are somehow a contrarian stack because everything's so crowded today and dispersed. But they are, I don't have their updated lineup, but I think they are putting out, Cedric Mullins actually ended up being in the lineup. He's actually hit lefties okay this season. Overall, he's kind of, but he's never a pinch hit risk. And if he gets on base, he does have a chance to steal here and there. He and Gunnar Henderson are the only lefties in the lineup, unless they end up with Kirkstad. Kirkstad has such a small sample size, it's really hard to know what he's good at, but he's one of their top prospects. Gunnar Henderson, outstanding in lefty-lefty matchups, borderline elite with over a 200 ISO in his last 227 same-handed plate appearances. So we don't have to worry about him. And then you got Adley Rutschman, who's better from the right side of the plate. He's a switch hitter. Tyler O'Neill is carrying the platoon advantage, as is Jordan Westberg. Gary Sanchez is working his way through the entire league to collect all of the uniforms. He is there as a cheap home run upside. Abbott allows a 43% hard hit rate. He's one of those pitchers. He has okay strikeout stuff, but he doesn't end up getting a lot of strikeouts percentage-wise. He has, last year he had just shy of a 20% strikeout rate. That's up a little higher this year. He's close to 8 per 9 innings, but the challenge is he doesn't always work deep into games to get over the hump and make it worthwhile. Plus, he is also someone, I don't have his home run numbers up, but he's no surprise, had his isolated power, filter over the last season and change to righties is 228. So that makes it tough. So I am kind of liking the Baltimore side of this one today. How do you feel about Baltimore? Anything else you want to mention on this game? Feel free to do so.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you here, EMAC. I mean, the wind's blowing out. Baltimore's been incredibly underwhelming against Southpaws, but this would be the matchup for us to really get involved with them and for them to prove a lot of people wrong and get on a nice path here with Abbott, who has just one start this year. But if you look at those numbers from last season, the home run to fly ball ratio at about 12%, ideally you'd be under 10. So certainly there's that vulnerability there. And with the wind blowing out, that could be a concoction that proves to be bad for him. And like you said, there's a lot of advantageous matchups within Baltimore's lineup that could thrive against Abbott. Last year, you look at some more of those underlying numbers. The xFIP for him was 491 despite a 372 ERA. very low ground ball percentage at 33%. So I certainly think Baltimore is going to be able to make some solid contact, get it up in the air, and prove to be a valuable stack here. So not much more needs to be said, though. I mean, you nailed it. I'm right there with you and think this is a very quality spot for the Orioles.
All right. And then on the other side, you have Cade Povich. He is, yet another talented Baltimore guy, has not put it together at all. I'm blanking on the pitcher that got hurt. Their other good youngster, but he's someone that we can attack. Go to the usual suspects: Matt McClain, Ellie De La Cruz. Even though he doesn't do quite as well from the right side of the plate, he still's got speed. Santiago Espinal batting second. He gets good contact and has surprising extra base power, not necessarily home run power, but more of the doubles variety. And then remember me game with Austin Hayes, right? One-time Baltimore Oriole. That's really where you want to focus. Spencer Steer, Heimer Candelario, they've kind of been struggling. They'll turn it around at some point, but I think they're better off back in Cincinnati than they are in Camden Yards. And then one final thing, they did revise or redo the renovations that they had done. They undid them in a slightly different way out there in left field. So they lowered the fence and moved it in a little bit there, undoing what they did 3 off seasons ago. So we're not quite back to Camden Yards, but it's closer than it was for righties. Let's keep chugging along here. Ooh, Seattle at Toronto. You had mentioned you were taking an interest earlier in Toronto. What was popping up for you? Because if we isolate just on the current season, Andres Jimenez looks good and nobody else does against righties. So what was popping for you? Are you saying, you know what, it's the $500 million man, Vladdy Guerrero Jr. It's fellow legacy player Bo Bichette, 2-time All-Star who's in a 2-year slump now. What did you like from Toronto?
Yeah, from a DFS perspective, not too much because, again, I'm more so high on Brian Wu and what he can bring to the table. And it's almost a contradiction because I did take the Blue Jays earlier today about -113 on the money line. And again, to reiterate, that's kind of more of a situational spot based on what occurred with Seattle yesterday in their game against the Reds and how much of a roller coaster that was and going into extras and Seattle being a volatile bunch themselves. And I think this is just a game where despite having a momentous win and taking 2 out of 3 against the Reds, this is where they get people's hopes up and then kind of fall off. And sure, the same could be applied to the Blue Jays. We've seen that time and time again, but Toronto's been pretty solid the past couple of games. And I think Bowden Francis with his numbers, they haven't been great so far, but last year he finished with a 3.30 ERA. His xERA was 3.39, and again, his numbers are kind of concerning so far, but his skill interactive ERA, what his true ERA probably should be looking back at it, it's about 4.17, so it's not bad. I think it's manageable against a Seattle offense that I think will kind of plateau in this type of environment. So from the betting angle, I like the Blue Jays. From DFS. Yeah, a little bit of interest in Bowden Francis, a tad bit, but Brian Wu certainly would be the one popping out more so, and certainly not as much intrigue from a offensive or stack standpoint. That's for sure, EMAC. But how do you feel about? I know how you feel about Brian Wu, but what you thinking about Francis or anybody from a player perspective, individually or stacking wise?
Yeah, not. I'd lean a little bit more towards Wu in this one, a little bit more towards the Seattle bats. We like Seattle when they're on the road, getting them out of the pitcher's park that they are in T-Mobile Park when they're at home. I kind of wish that DFS would have been around in the 90s, the early to mid 90s, heck, even up through 2000, because when they were playing in the Kingdom up until 95, that would have been some seriously fun DFS times with Jay Buhner and Ken Griffey Jr. and Edgar Martinez and Tino Martinez and all the gang. I was in Seattle at the time. Actually, went to the first ever game in the Kingdom back in 1977. Oh, wow. For those wondering, yeah. Went to the first game with my dad and 2 of his work friends. We had to drive. I tell this story usually once or twice a year. We lived about 150 miles away, and he was driving his buddies, and our family car was a VW Bug. So He a late 60s feed up bug. And so his buddies, when the one guy got sick, they're like, bring your kid, because they didn't want to have to share a back seat 2 full grown men in a feed up bug. So they came and got me at school, and we drove over and went to the game. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Oh, that's incredible.
All right. But back to this, a little bit of the Seattle side. I was all ready to pick on Emerson Hancock, and I will again as long as he is in the rotation. Despite all the good Seattle pitchers and good draft capital that they've spent, he looks like a miss right now. But that was, I forget if that was yesterday or 2 days ago. There will be times where I will have stronger feelings on this one. I don't in particular on this one because I have enough. I don't know what to make of Bowden Francis yet, or Francis Bowden. Mm-hmm. 2 first names. Come on, whatever that guy's doing. Okay, let's keep chugging along here, and then we can have some more fun. St. Louis at the Mets, we kind of hit on the Peterson aspect, but how do you feel about the no longer LOL Mets against Miles Michaelis?
Yeah, this recent Sims run that I had, I mean, I'm certainly getting more Mets than I personally envisioned. I don't say that in a bad way necessarily. I just didn't directly target them as much as I did some other teams, EMAC. But, Miles Michaelis is, I don't know what the right word to put it is. I guess just a funny pitcher to me, because you'll just get some of these starts that just blow your mind what he's capable of. And it doesn't make sense sometimes how he gets out of these jams and how these teams don't take advantage. But then you're looking at his number. I guess like last year was a great example of that. But, he's obviously not off to a great start right now. Throughout his first 3 starts, he's walking about 3.5 batters per 9 innings, hasn't struck out that many, under 7 per 9 innings pitched. And, his ERA is at 9. Obviously, that's skyrocketing way more than what it should be, probably around that 4 mark. But then his xFIP's at 471. So, yeah, I would just be targeting some stacks here with the Mets. No love for Michaelis from a pitching perspective whatsoever from my side of things. Weather-wise, looks like it's going to be blowing out a decent amount, like we were talking about earlier with Peterson. So, yeah, I mean, that's not going to help Michaelis either. So, I would be heavy Mets, and that's pretty much all I would have in this spot.
Okay, well, we're going to go to our next game here, and I'm gonna say that the escapability that you were describing there for Michaelis is exactly what you get with Martin Perez. So this is going to blow everybody's mind, because Martin Perez always looks like someone you want to pick on. The Boston is popping in the tools.
Yeah.
Martin Perez, I haven't looked at this year, but if we look at his last 2 seasons, 61 total starts, only 9 times has he given up 5 or more runs. That's 14% of the time. Otherwise, it's been 4 or fewer. He absorbs damage. He induces ground balls, pitcher's best friend, the double play. All that happens for him, and he gets lucky. He's living on the edge of danger constantly because he doesn't get enough strikeouts, but somehow he weaves the magic like Michaelis, and it works out for him. We mentioned this. Tyler Anderson is the left-handed fly ball version of that, whereas Martin Perez is the ground ball version. That was what I brought up, and I'm going to bring up every time these guys are on a slate that I do. But Matt had to hear the story. Yes, that's Matt Bellman, who had $100,000 victory when he did the show with me on Tuesday. So hopefully you have some ridiculous parlay.
Oh, you're the good luck charm, baby.
Yes, we shall see. We shall see. Speaking of big wins, Humboldt said he took down the showdown slate today. He's out at his construction site right now. He says he's buying the beer, but congratulations to Humboldt. Yeah. He is in the chat all of the time here. All right, that was my rant against Martin Perez. How do you feel about this? Because that's going to be my spot where I get different from the field is less Boston hitters.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of finding myself as well, Emac. I mean, before the show, I'm like, our Sims are just in love with Boston here. And I see the path, but I'm just a little hesitant. how overzealous they are with them. I mean, again, with Perez, his underlying metrics are scary. He's due to get beat up here, and that's been the name of the game with him. 159 ERA, 408 xFIP isn't terrible, but sizable discrepancy. You're going to a tricky ballpark in Fenway with the wind blowing out 16 miles per hour. He's walking almost 5 batters per 9 innings. He did well when he faced him recently, but you're getting a quick turnaround to seeing him again. And Boston's kind of finally getting back in their rhythm from an offensive standpoint, especially against lefties. So I like Boston here. I don't love them. So yeah, maybe just a slight tick down from where our Sims have it, kind of famous last words. I certainly would rather take our Tools word over mine, but yeah, just I'm differing a tad bit on Boston. So I'm kind of on the same alignment with you in terms of stacking up Boston tonight.
Yeah, and on both sides, they're coming in between 10 and 15% popularity. So they're not over-owned, but coming at half that, I think is a reasonable way to go. Mm-hmm. That would be my standpoint. Or if you're only building a few lineups, don't play any Red Sox. Let's see. Do you want anything against Hunter Dobbins here? Did I put any notes on Dobbins? I know Dobbins is, I'm just going from memory here. I know this is I think it's his second start. He's getting the call up. He was kind of meh in AAA. I didn't do a full write-up on him, so I was starting to, because I was looking at him this morning as a streamer for season long, because the White Sox are just that bad. I dabbled in my head-to-head. I didn't want to burn any of my roto starts, and I don't really think he's a cheap SP2 just because we don't need to go there today with the way the slate is shaking out. So I don't really have anything exciting to say about him, and I don't really ever want to take the White Sox bats. So.
Yeah, that's pretty much the extent of it with the White Sox. Earlier in the day, I was higher on Hunter Dobbins. That's come down a bit. Look, it's going to be his second start, so teams are still kind of trying to figure him out. Give him a few before he finally gets caught up on, and then you'll probably inevitably get pummeled, but most likely not going to happen against the White Sox. So I do wish he was a little cheaper, as you were alluding to. I've got no issues one way or another how anybody would attack Hunter Dobbins. Have him in, a handful of lineups, but nothing too crazy tonight.
Yep, I see someone saying, "What are you talking about season-long leagues?" Well, that's where I cut my bones, man. That's where I got my stripes. 1990, spring of 1990, first time I played fantasy baseball. That's 36 seasons of season-long fantasy baseball. That carries over to DFS nicely. You know what doesn't? Fantasy basketball. Fantasy football carries over to DFS. Fantasy basketball season-long, not so much. So I like to just remind people, I've seen a lot of things here, seen a lot throughout the years. All right, let's keep going on here. Did you play season long baseball, or were you mostly a fantasy football guy when you were first discovering the wonders of these sports?
Yeah, mostly just fantasy football. I think I tried baseball for the 1 year, and it wasn't more of a lack of interest from me per se. It was more of a lack of interest from my friends. And then from that standpoint, it kind of just had me lose interest in really focusing on football, and then basketball, a little bit more so than baseball. So yeah, unfortunately, not as much, but some of my buddies are slowly getting back into it. So hopefully we'll be able to get a competitive league going again soon.
Yeah, how baseball worked the best was it was once a week stats in either Sporting News or USA Today. And yes, we did them by hand. And then when we got Excel, we did them in Excel with one of us reading and the other typing. So that was the way that worked once upon a time. Back to our next game here. You had mentioned Bryce Elder coming up a little higher than you were expecting. Are you still feeling okay with him? What do you think about Chris Paddock? And this is just it's not a daunting Minnesota lineup. Byron Buxton, healthy for the moment. Carlos Correa, healthy for the moment. Trevor Larnach, yep, he's probably their best hitter against righties. Nothing else in the lineup is worth mentioning. That's not a good state of the Twins right now.
No, it's not. And yeah, I'm very high in the Braves. They're probably my favorite bet of the day and arguably one of my favorite stacks of the day, too. I know people are mentioning it in the comments and completely agree about fading Paddock here. For the most part, Minnesota's got a sound pitching rotation, but Paddock is definitely that weak link. And even when they do have a quality pitcher, it just seems like it doesn't coincide with the lineup helping them out. So definitely looking for Atlanta to bounce back after this tremendously slow start. Coming back home now, they have Bryce Elder, who simultaneously is looking to get a good outing under his belt, and he's got all the tools and assets to do so. We've seen it in the past. He just needs to get over that hump, and against a very lackluster Minnesota lineup, I think this is the time to do it. And again, then putting that alongside with this Braves lineup that still has a lot of that power, but has just been surprisingly underwhelming. Not to say that I thought this was going to be the top team in the division. I certainly thought they would fall down, but not to this degree per se, EMAC. But this is a beautiful spot for him here. Yeah, I'm all over Atlanta, and I think they're going to light up Chris Paddock tonight. That's what I'm hoping, at least, and looking forward to watching.
All right, let's keep chugging along here because at 6 o'clock we have NBA Live Before Lock breaking down the last phase of the play-in tournament. The win or go home, you are going to get Josh Engelman. Remember, the Washington and Colorado game has been postponed, so we have 4 more. We're going to hit on these really, really quick. I'm going to take the why should we not play Jacob deGrom side, and then I will let you counter. deGrom has been no bueno. Injuries have just robbed him of everything. Since the start of 2021, he has played 212 innings. That's it. That's the equivalent of an extended season, like what pitchers used to do. Like his career high in innings, I think, is like 208 from a couple years prior. So he has just not been able to be healthy. But what he's done through that stretch until this season is he's kept up his strikeout rates. So that continually made him interesting. It continually makes him look good in tools and in projections. But the thing this year is his fastball, his slider, his changeup, everything that he throws is about 2.5 to 3 miles an hour lower than it was from when before he got hurt. This could be the end of the road. I believe this is his age 36 season, if I remember correctly. But this is a tough ask, going against 3 MVPs at the top of the lineup in Freeman, Betts, and Ohtani, 4 other All-Stars with Teoscar Hernandez, Will Smith, Max Muncy, Michael Conforto. Now, only Teoscar was the All-Star last year, but each of these guys has been an All-Star. Tommy Edman, never been an All-Star, but solid switch hitter, and he won a Gold Glove. So you're going against an accomplished lineup here. The Dodgers, on a normal slate, they'd be considered contrarian. Now everybody's just kind of bunched together and diffused or spread out like peanut butter on all of this. But I am anti Jacob deGrom. And I had a nice headline last time he pitched saying, "Do you feel degroovy?" Or when he pitched, what was it, like April 5th? So I don't think I wrote him up last time. Sorry, Jacob deGrom. Just not good anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's hard. And even though you're getting, a discount from, of course, what we've seen beforehand, how can you justify it against the Los Angeles Dodgers? The strikeout numbers are there, the longevity and length of what he's going to give you, especially in this scenario. It's just not going to be. So you can't really justify getting involved with deGrom too much. Though it seems like our Sims actually have a little bit more appeal toward him than I did. But again, I'm not going to be finding myself with too much deGrom tonight.
All right. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, great pitcher. Tougher matchup here against Texas this season. The top guys are starting off pretty slow. Semien, Seager, and Jacques Peterson, a ton of red. But if we look at just the last 2 seasons, aside from Semien, Seager, Peterson, Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, etc. Jake Berger, those guys all have phenomenal numbers. I think you can go to Yamamoto, kind of match the field there. Nothing much to add on that. But now we got in our last 3 games, we got more people to pick on here. Kyle Hart going against the Astros and Ryan Gusto taking on San Diego. How do you feel about these youngsters? I think this could be their comeuppance tonight.
Oh, okay. So I'm pretty high on Houston here, fading Kyle Hart. I know he's making his fourth start tonight, and again, his numbers aren't he's actually trending in the right direction, I guess I would say, right? I mean, not to say that having an xFIP over 5 is quality per se, but his expected ERA is at 4, and he has shown signs of command here and there. But it's just, man, I mean, Houston, it's still tough to go against him, even though it's not the same squad. But it's a 6.5% strikeout to walk ratio from Hart, and he'll get better. He's a young guy, but his hard hit rate's also over 50%. Houston's been atrocious against lefties, EMAC, but they've also seen the fewest at-bats against southpaws. So that's why I think they'll be able to turn it around. I am high on Houston. And then in terms of the with Gusto that you were talking about, I actually don't mind him. I think he could be a decent look here, a little bit more expensive from a tad bit more low-key of a guy than I would have hoped for, but I still think you can get some value at about 7,200 on DraftKings. Again, one of those pitchers where his stuff early on has been effective, and before some of these bats catch on, I think we can take advantage of that. His strikeouts per 9 at about 11.25. Good expected ERA, 285. His normal ERA is just at 3, so you're below that, which is tremendous. Skill interactive ERAs there at 283, and he's getting, again, just to reiterate it, swinging strike rate is at 16%, so the strikeouts are there. We'll see if he can contain this, lethal lineup that San Diego has been, but I think it's worth taking some flyers here, not even a flyer, but just taking a stance here with Gusto. I think he's in a pretty good position tonight.
Don't hate it. The only thing I have of concern is just the incredibly low strikeout rate of the confirmed lineup against righties. It's 20.8% since the start of last year. Martin Maldonado is the only one above league average. So
now you know
Maldonado's
just the guy who's going to go deep on him too. Like he'll just have those games where
he's the only one he's going to feel comfortable pitching. He's like, I'm challenging this guy. So. All right, you guys did know how we were going to get through this game or the last 2 games. Well, we hit on Freddie Peralta. Said we liked him as a pitcher. He's got to dance with the devil with the first 4 batters, their first 5 batters, but there's no depth in that Oakland lineup. They're top 10 in home runs, but middle of the road in total bases and runs. How do you feel about the Brew Crew against JT Ginn on the other side?
I'm so indifferent here, EMAC, because with the Brewers in general, I mean, this is a team that I did not have a lot of hope for this season. I thought that they would be, falling down in the wrong direction, but against a little bit of an unknown commodity, I do see some value here. I know our Sims like him as well. So, I'm personally not going too crazy on them, but I think they're a fine option. I really don't have too much more to say about Milwaukee unless you do. I don't want to take up space kind of, blabbering about them because they're not really moving the needle too much for me. So if you have a more convincing argument one way or another, feel free. But yeah, I'm kind of just right there in the middle with Milwaukee tonight.
Yep. That's kind of where I am as well. And then if we look at, we said we really both like Logan Webb. If we look at Tyler Anderson last year, how he had 31 appearances. Only twice did he allow more than 4 earned runs. Let's see what that was. And he lives on the edge with fly balls. The prior year it was a little worse. 8 times he allowed 5 or more in 27 starts. So a quarter, almost a third of the time the year prior. But none of those were super bad. 5, 5, 5, 5, right? 6, 6, 6, and 7. So he is someone that's similar to Martin Perez. You want to go against him. You'll rarely roster him, but he absorbs damage, and that makes it tough to get excited about those stacks.
Yeah, I mean, Anderson's an enigma, right? And he's been one of my favorite pitchers to at least attempt to fade. And a lot of times it has, a bit of viable strategy, but like last year just made you rip your hair out sometimes watching him pitch. You're going, how is this guy still in the freaking game? It makes no sense. But I think it's a tough outing for him here. I like San Francisco a lot in terms of a stack perspective because they've been a hot team. So if you're going to catch him and think that they maybe kind of come back down to earth, now's the time to take him against Tyler Anderson, who again, yes, he's been able to find a way to navigate through these rough waters, but his underlying metrics are screaming that he should get beat up. He's walking over 5 guys per 9 innings and 1.72 home runs per 9 innings in these 3 starts so far. These numbers are shocking because, again, we've seen it so often with him in the past that I do feel comfortable going against the southpaw here, even though, if it's going to be the Anderson of like last year, he'll make me eat my words. But at least right now, EMAC, I'm going to look to fade him pretty heavily with San Fran.
All right, top two stacks and your home run call, and then we're going to let Josh Engelman have the airwaves here. For me, it is going to be the batters of Birdland and the Dodgers. Those are my top two stacks.
All right, my top stack is going to, or stacks, pardon me, is going to be Houston and Atlanta. Those are my two top stacks that I'm going to be riding with tonight.
All right, my home run, Tyler O'Neill, going against Andrew Abbott.
All right, you know what? I actually didn't go too crazy with the homers, but you kind of sold me on Gunnar Henderson here. So
okay,
I think I'm going to go with Henderson. Yeah, and you know, if it comes to fruition, you're getting a lot of credit there. You made a good case for him, so I like Henderson tonight.
All right. Well, with that, look at that. Right on time. Who's done a few of these shows before? I can't wait for lightning to strike me. This is going to be great. You guys, this was the fun dynamic duo here of Danny and your old pal Emac. But tune in to YouTube right now and playback and get NBA Live Before Lock elimination style here. Everything is on the line for 4 teams. Enjoy. With that, please hit the like button and tune in tomorrow as we do MLB all over again. With that, gamers, good luck.